Yeah, and the administration has said so today. Secretary Ludnick said, we're going to get the 100 done by July 8th, which is when the temporary freeze of the tariff expires. I think focusing on the top 18, they've talked about 18, is the right way to go. I think if we get 18, call it term sheets, I think that will be received in a very positive fashion by the markets. That would be a major victory. I think the president would be very pleased. So, instead of shooting for 100 or claiming that we're going to have 100, if they're able to get these 18 done, and again, it would be a framework of a deal, it wouldn't be a total trade agreement, that would be a major win. And the markets will give the president a lot of credit for that. And I hope that they're focused on precisely that.
Mr. Secretary, are you expecting much out of Geneva this weekend at all when the USTR, Jameson Greer, and also, of course, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, sit down with key Chinese officials, including their top negotiator, He Lifeng, there? Or is it just good enough, right, that we are having these high-level talks and contacts?
Well, it's a great start. And the fact that the two countries are meeting is a major message to investors. China is the number one issue. If you look at the tariffs, 145%, there are small businesses who are already feeling the crunch. We're going to start seeing out of stocks over the next 2 weeks, empty shelves, shortages. And it took a while to get started, but in a similar fashion, it's going to take a while to undo what has been put in place. So I would expect that the best to come out of this weekend would be a reduction in the tariff levels from 145 down, from 125 down. If it were 50, that would be a wonderful outcome. But that would be, for me, the best case. But as you said, the important thing is that this has started. What I think China should keep in mind is that President Trump likes bold deals. He likes big moves. An ordinary traditional trade agreement is not really of attraction to him. So because he wants bold moves, China should see this in an expansive way to expand the scope. They could achieve potentially geopolitical benefits from this. So I hope it gets started. I hope we can reach an agreement at least on trade. But I also believe that China should see this as a major opportunity and not a defensive move.
Exactly a month ago, Mr. Secretary, when we had you on, you were saying that China is not going to easily back down because this is really a matter that ties into the national pride. How do you assess the developments so far over the past 4 weeks or so in terms of how the U.S. administration has been handling it and how the emotions have been really evolving in China as well?
Well, you heard the president say today that he knows that China wants a deal. And in terms of the emotion, that is important, right? That China really wants a deal with the U.S. President Xi has managed this in a very clever way. At no point has China shown a lack of patience or a desire to get to the table. They've been very patient. There haven't been any signals of desperation. In fact, when someone in the U.S. said we're already talking to China, it was President Xi or someone in the Chinese government who said, no, we haven't started discussions. So they've played it very well, and they've played it with a lot of patience, a view towards the long term. So the important thing will be what they actually accomplish this weekend. But this is not going to happen with threats on both sides. Both presidents will react poorly to threats, to trying to up each other, who gave in, who didn't, who wanted the deal. I think from here on, privacy is important. And this will be a test for the Trump administration because privacy is not something that characterizes this administration. It's been very transparent with the media, but privacy will help the deal move forward.
But from your experience as a former U.S. Commerce Secretary, does it really not matter who wanted this deal, who called who first. And obviously, President Trump is not making things anything private at this point, as you point out. How does it matter? How would it affect the dialogue going forward?
Actually, these statements are more for domestic consumption. President Trump doesn't want to give the impression to his constituency that he's desperate for a deal, that he may have gone too far on tariffs. And likewise, I don't think President Xi wants to convey to his constituents, to his public, that China is also giving in. So that is more for domestic consumption. I think once we get to the table, the one thing that can hold back is this notion that whatever is said will be public. And I know that many world leaders will be very careful about that. So again, I think discipline here, if Secretary Bessent can commit to keeping things private, perhaps an announcement by the president that talks are going well, that we're looking at certain areas, that we're looking at reducing certain tariffs, that would be good. But the more detail we get into about who wanted the deal and whether China is willing to give a lot, I think that can hold back the talks. So the more we talk about it, the less likely a good deal would be.
Mr. Secretary, you probably agree that, you know, if and when there is a deal to be done with China, you know, they're going to want to basically go to town with it and publicize it as much as they can as a win for the United States. That's sort of consistent with the way the Trump administration has been doing things, right? But, you know, this whole idea of art of the deal and starting with a maximalist position to maybe scare people or get them on the back foot and then bargaining down from there, we know about that. You mentioned that the president likes big, grand sort of deals, right? So indulge me here with in the sort of thought exercise, right? You talked about tariffs coming down, and there's been a lot of chatter they could maybe potentially more than halve from 145 down to maybe even in the 40s or at least 50s, right? In addition to that, China, let's say, buys more soybeans, more Boeings, more corn. How much bigger conceivably could this get? Could it involve the U.S. allowing China to invest in the U.S., say BYD, building a car factory in China with sufficient guardrails, of course, right? And potentially even the U.S. giving China a pass on Taiwan. Do you think that the president is thinking that big?
I wouldn't discard any of that. You know, that would be what you said about automobiles. We want automobiles to be manufactured in the U.S. It's not just about coming back to the U.S., but having new investment in the U.S. That would be a sign that the times are changing. If an agreement can be reached to allow China to make an investment in the U.S. to manufacture automobiles, that could be a dream, and it may not even be near an agreement. But in terms of bold and doing something new, something that breaks through, that would be very big. And I believe the president can sell that. I don't think he would, he would look weak. I think he can actually sell it to his base. On Taiwan, there's a lot that can be done. Reduce the rhetoric. The U.S. can make a public statement that we don't support Taiwan independence. There's a spectrum of things. And I don't think that is so critical to President Trump that he would allow it to be an obstacle to better relations with China. This is an opportunity for him to be, say, the Richard Nixon of the 21st century. And he sees it that way. He sees it as an opportunity to not just to have things go back to the way they were, but to have a new chapter, a new book in the relationship between China and the U.S., a historic agreement.